The Israeli Air Force launched waves of strikes targeting Lebanese financial institutions linked to Hezbollah as the war against terror proxies of the regime in Iran continues. To avoid civilian casualties, the IDF announced the planned attack in advance. This comes as the IDF continues to target Hezbollah sites in southern Lebanon, where they faced criticism in recent weeks for the injuries of UNIFIL peacekeepers, whose positions were compromised by proximity to Hezbollah. New testimony from Hezbollah operatives captured in combat shows that UNIFIL staff were bribed by Hezbollah to use their positions, a claim UNIFIL is already denying. Hezbollah operatives also explained how they took control of UNIFIL's security cameras in the vicinity and used them for their own terror activities. More from Lebanon from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The strikes in Beirut and other Hezbollah strongholds hit branches of the Al-Qard al-Hassan Financial Association that bankrolls the operations of the Iranian-backed terror group. The Lebanese news agency reported 11 strikes on Beirut's southern suburbs and a strike close to Beirut International Airport. Strikes also targeted the quasi-bank branches in Riyak and Baalbek in the Bekaa Valley. To avoid civilian casualties, the IDF announced the attacks in advance.
אנחנו נתקוף מספר רב של מטרות בשעות הקרובות, ומטרות נוספות בהמשך הלילה. בימים הקרובים נחשוף כיצד איראן מממנת את פעילות הטרור של חיזבאללה באמצעות שימוש במוסדות אזרחיים, אגודות ועמותות כמחסה לפעילות טרור. אנחנו נתקוף אותם במהלך הלילה, ונעדכן על תוצאות התקיפה בהמשך הימים הקרובים.
In South Lebanon, the Air Force also attacked dozens of terror targets and the launchers from which dozens of missiles were fired toward the western Galilee. The ground operations against Hezbollah are continuing in border towns in South Lebanon. In the last day, the fighters from Division 98 eliminated many Hezbollah gunmen, including commanders and a terrorist squad that launched anti-tank missiles. The IDF released a final video from Captain Itai Giat's GoPro headcam. The soldier from the Ahalom unit filmed on October 1st, a day before he was killed fighting in Lebanon. The IDF also announced the death of Reserve Sergeant Major Yishai Greenbaum from wounds sustained in battles in South Lebanon last week. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, the U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein is expected in Beirut today in what the Lebanese parliament speaker is calling a last-chance effort to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. Israel's conditions reportedly include the enforced disarming of Hezbollah in South Lebanon, its withdrawal beyond the Litani River, and unlimited access to Lebanese airspace.
Hezbollah is still managing to fire a large number of rockets into Israel. Alerts were detected in the upper and western and central Galilee this morning. About 25 launches were detected. Some were intercepted and others fell in open areas. There were no casualties reported. Earlier, the Air Force intercepted a UAV over Syrian skies that was targeting Israel from the east. The armed drone was intercepted before entering Israeli territory. In some areas in the north, fires are still burning from more than 100 rockets fired by Hezbollah in the past 24 hours. Planes and firefighting teams are extinguishing blazes near homes in Sfat. Well, the IDF lost a distinguished officer fighting in Gaza amid continuing offensive in Jabalia in the north of the coastal enclave. Many thousands will attend Colonel Ahsan Daksa's funeral in the Druze town of Daliat el-Carmel. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz reports.
The commander of the IDF's 401st Brigade, Ahsan Daksa, fell while fighting Hamas in Jabalia. Daksa, age 41, from the Druze town of Daliat el-Carmel, became the sixth colonel to have been killed in fighting, including 4 killed during the Hamas onslaught on October 7th. Daksa was promoted to the rank of colonel in 2020 when he was given command of the 205th Iron Fist Brigade. The IDF says that Daksa was outside his tank with other officers at an observation point when a booby-trapped explosive device was triggered. Several other officers were wounded in the blast.
היום בהיתקלות בצפון רצועת עזה, במרחב ג'באליה, נפל מפקד חטיבת השריון 401, אלוף משנה אחסן דקסה, ונפצעו מפקד גדוד באורח קשה ושני קצינים נוספים באורח קל. המפקדים נכנסו לשטח בטנקים ויצאו מהם לטובת תצפית. במהלך התצפית נפגעו מהפעלת מטען כשהם מחוץ לטנק.
IDF forces destroyed terrorist infrastructure and tunnel shafts in the Jabalia region and eliminated dozens of terrorists in the past day. In recent days, the IDF has been conducting a ground and aerial operation in Jabalia to prevent a resurgence of Hamas gunmen in the area. The army has also been urging Gazan civilians to head south as the IDF continues maneuvers in northern Gaza. The ground movements were accompanied by heavy airstrikes targeting Hamas gunmen. There are reports of heavy casualties in the area of Beit Lahia.
As Israel battles a multi-front war, the Gaza Strip is continuing to see fighting on the ground, targeting Hamas tunnels and weapons. Despite the assassination of Sinwar, the battles continue to dismantle terror infrastructure. The question that many are asking is what is next for Gaza? Here to discuss with us is Colonel Grisha Yakubovich, former head of Kogat. Grisha, as always, pleasure to have you on. Thank you for joining us today. What are you hearing from inside Gaza following Sinwar's assassination? We see a lot of Gazans surrendering in some of this footage. Are the tides possibly turning on the civilian support for terrorism?
Well, I can tell you that what I read in the social media is that people ask a question, it's like, how come you expected to win a nuclear power like the State of Israel with their abilities, sitting on a chair, throwing a stick on a drone? So it looks like, I would call it the Sinwar event. It will lead us. It will take some time, but it will lead us to a process that eventually, a deal will come out, and then we will start talking about it the day after.
Now, obviously, my next question is what happens next? Assuming the IDF is able to wrap this up nicely, who will control Gaza after Hamas, and how can Israel ensure security long-term when we still have the Islamic regime in Iran funding these terror proxies all over the Middle East?
But Emily, as you know, it's not only the IDF. Okay, we have a combination between IDF abilities, between the government of Israel, the civilian abilities, and of course, to create a better future for the people of Gaza, we will also need the Arab world and the United States. It will take time. It will take years. It's not something that will happen tomorrow morning like a magic. You do like that and things happen. It will take time, at least a generation, to reconstruct Gaza and to let them understand that it will be way better to live in peace instead of living in a war, or adopting the narrative of Muqawama. It means resistance. Who will rule Gaza? That's actually the biggest question, because it will not be Hamas. Israel will not allow it. It will not be the Palestinian Authority, because as it looks like, the Palestinian Authority is also becoming or leading a way of adopting this narrative of Hamas, like Muqawama, resistance. And recently we find many signs of ISIS already in the West Bank. So it looks like the Palestinian Authority will have to go also through a process before they will be even in the West Bank, and we're not mentioning Gaza. So it seems like Mohammed Dahlan, the guy that says, no, I don't want to, he is the guy that will probably enter to Gaza at the back door, supported by the Emirates and Saudi Arabia.
Now, under Sinwar, Gaza saw significant investment, we'll call it, from the regime in Iran. But one of his potential successors, Khaled Mashal, is less attuned to the regime in Iran. Now that Sinwar is gone, do you think there's a possibility that Hamas, which of course is a Muslim Brotherhood Sunni group, perhaps would pull away from the regime's strings in the Middle East?
Well, we have one obstacle for now, and the obstacle is Sinwar's brother. Actually, there are three brothers. Muhammad is the guy that replaces, he's Hamas chief of staff for now. He's a psychopathic pedophile. It's all known in the Gaza Strip, and Hamas leaders also know that, but he's also a little bit crazy. And it will take some time to eliminate him. People are afraid of him. And I think that the happiest person at Hamas is Khaled Mashal. He cleared the way for Sinwar a few months ago when he elected himself as the leader of Hamas, because he knew it will be temporary. And he waited for the opportunity, or he waited on knowing that Israel will eliminate him. And now he is the happiest person on earth because he knows that he will actually lead Hamas. And actually, he changes something that happened 18 or 16 years ago when Haniya won the elections for the first time. So it was the first time when Gazans, Hamas, won the lead of this organization. It's like Gaza inside and Hamas outside became one, and Sinwar break the chain when Israel killed him. So for the first time, Hamas leaders in Qatar and in Turkey are very happy, except Khalil al-Hayya, that the glory will be given back to Hamas outside, Khaled Mash'al, that he is against Iran. And of course, it opens also an opportunity to lead one of those, I would say, possibilities, as I mentioned, that maybe Dahlan will enter to Gaza at the back door with the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, the ones that used in the past to be in touch with Hamas, the original Hamas.
Right. Well, let's hope for the best when it comes to the day after in Gaza. We'll keep you updated on those things, but we are out of time for today. Colonel Grisha Yakubovich, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, Emily, have a nice day.
After a pro-Islamic regime Telegram channel published highly classified documents exposing Israeli preparations for a strike on Iran, the U.S. government is urgently investigating how the reports were leaked. Let's take a look at what some of the U.S. leadership had to say. After classified intelligence documents were leaked detailing IDF preparations for a strike on Iran, U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson says the U.S. has opened an investigation into the breach. The documents, which were created October 15th and 16th, described IDF drills in preparation for a strike, as well as the movement of advanced munitions. They were released yesterday on a Telegram channel supportive of the Islamic regime in Iran. This comes as Israel is engaged in planning a retaliatory strike on the regime following their ballistic missile attack on Israel October 1st. Though the documents are unlikely to have a major impact on Israel's operational approach, Israeli officials have stated they expect the leak to be prosecuted by the U.S., but it will not impact the U.S.-Israel relationship. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who spoke with the Prime Minister in the aftermath of the leak, said the leak was extremely concerning, but that the government is following it closely. He also praised Netanyahu for his execution of the war.
Yeah, the leak is very concerning. There's some serious allegations being made there, investigation underway, and I'll get a briefing on that in a couple of hours. There's a classified level briefing and then other, but we're following it closely. Look, I talked to my friend Bibi, Prime Minister Netanyahu, yesterday to encourage him. I mean, he's done an extraordinary job, I think, prosecuting that war, and if he had taken Joe Biden's advice, they'd be in a much weaker position right now.
Despite leaks as Israel prepares for an attack on Iran, the U.S. has been firm in their support for the Jewish state, sending the THAAD missile system operated by U.S. soldiers on Israeli soil. The advanced missile defense battery, which can defend targets 93 to 142 miles away, is now operational and is being manned by around 100 U.S. troops. And while the IDF's elimination of Sinwar has been greatly celebrated, it is still unclear what this could mean for the hostages and possible end to the war. ILTV's Ariella Lahiani is at Hostage Square with more.
Yes, thank you, Emily. So following the IDF's assassination of Hamas leader Sinwar, the Biden administration has expressed great optimism in reaching a ceasefire and hostage deal. However, reports claim that this is still highly unlikely, and a senior official has actually stated that there are currently no ongoing talks in reaching a deal in place, despite both President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris stating that Sinwar's death provides a great opportunity in ending the war. Now, whilst mediators between Israel and Hamas agree that Sinwar's death could provide an opportunity in reaching a deal, they've stated it could also become an obstacle, specifically due to uncertainty surrounding who will replace Sinwar and therefore have a final say in any negotiations. Now, reports claim Israel is planning on using Sinwar's body, which has now been transferred to a secret area, as another bargaining chip in any negotiations, and the chief of the Shin Bet has actually visited Cairo just yesterday to discuss attempting to revive hostage talks. And now, in spite of all of this, both officials and the Israeli government state any progress progress is unlikely to be made regarding a deal until Israel has responded to Iran's missile attack just a couple of weeks ago, as Hamas is unlikely to agree to any terms until they have seen what the consequences of that strike will be. And as a result, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is actually set to visit the Middle East later this week to try and reach some sort of diplomatic agreement regarding Israel's response.
The Israel Allies Foundation has released its annual list of top 50 Christian allies. And at the top of this year is Pastor Franklin Graham, the son of the legendary pastor Billy Graham and the president of Samaritan's Purse. Pastor Franklin Graham joins us now. Pastor, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, first, I want to congratulate you on being named #1 of the Israel Allies Foundation list of top Christian allies of Israel. You, of course, must be very proud. Can you tell us a little bit about your work in Israel since the October 7th massacre?
First of all, the #1 ally of Israel is God. And so I want to make sure everyone understands that. It's God. And I'm just his ambassador. That's all I am. But it breaks our heart to see the loss of life in Israel, to see the death and destruction that we've seen. And so our hearts are with the people of Israel, and our prayers are for the peace of Jerusalem. The Bible instructs us to do that. I think just after the attack last year, we had people on the ground within 2 or 3 days looking to see how we could help. And one of the first things we found out that David Edom had lost at that time 14 ambulances. And we said, okay, we'll replace those. That's easy. We can't replace life. The people that died in those ambulances and those that they were going to help, we can't replace that life, but we can replace those ambulances. That's something we can do. And so we decided to make that choice to replace those. And since then, I think it's a total of 42 ambulances now that we're committed to. And that's just something we feel that's important, because these are your first responders. They're going out, and a number of these that we're buying are armored. And it's important that the person that's driving these ambulances is protected, and the patients in the back are protected as much as you possibly can. We've provided food vouchers to people. So many people are living in makeshift shelters or hotels. They have to be away from the border. They can't go home. And so we've provided gift cards for them to buy supplemental things at some of the stores. But these are small things. And again, the #1 fan of Israel is God. And so we do everything in his name.
Now, I want to ask you just to change gears a little bit. The U.S. election is fast approaching, and you've been a strong supporter of former U.S. President Donald Trump, despite the understanding that he personally may not practice the stereotypical evangelical Christian values. Why do you think we need Trump back in the White House?
Well, we need a strong person in the White House. And I do believe that with President Trump in the White House, no question, he's a friend of Israel. But I think he will try to work out a peace deal that would not just be Israel and his neighbors, but it would be for the entire region, and which I think would be good for everyone. So I pray that Donald Trump, if it be God's will, that he would become our next president. And so it's going to take a lot of work for Lebanon and for Gaza, for those issues to be resolved, and the issues on the West Bank. That's going to take not only the American president, but it's going to take some diplomacy on all sides to work out these kinds of agreements.
Absolutely. Well, Pastor Graham, we're unfortunately out of time, but I want to thank you for speaking with us today and for all the incredible work that you're doing here in Israel.
Thank you.
As part of our ILTV and Israel Bonds special October 7th memorial event, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Michael Levy, the brother of Or Levy, who was kidnapped from the Nova Music Festival on that terrible day. Since then, he's been tirelessly fighting for Or's release and the release of all the hostages. Let's take a look at some of the excerpts from this conversation. Now, obviously, this has been a traumatic experience for the whole family. What is it that keeps you going on days when the pain seems unbearable?
The fact that you know that you have a nephew or as a son that needs his father. I know it is difficult. Sometimes it's not easy to wake up and keep going, but I know I have a mission. I promised my parents to bring him back, and I promised myself and my girls to bring their uncle back. And I just can't stop until he is back.
Now, you personally have been on a mission to raise awareness, of course, for Or's situation in Hamas captivity, but also for all of the hostages. And you've emphasized many times that this is not just an Israeli issue, but an international one as well. How has the international community responded to this issue? And how has the Israeli community received the news of what's been happening in the past 365 days?
As everyone probably knows, the Israeli community is amazing. You know, one of the few good things that happened out of October 7th is people that unite, that people that left everything behind and just doing everything they can in order to help us and the entire community. The international community is also very supportive. I mean, at least the people that I've met, they're very supportive. They show solidarity. They don't always do enough, I guess, because we all can do more, including myself. But they are sympathetic. They do understand that what we have here is something that can happen all across the world, and this is the main message I try to show the international community.
Now, how has Or's son, Almog, how has he responded to all of this tragedy and not having his parents around in the past year?
I think that's the most difficult thing, dealing with the day-to-day stuff. Almog wants his parents back. Unfortunately, we cannot bring Einav back, but his father is still alive. He misses him every day, but at the same time, he's starting to forget. Now, when we show him pictures of Or, he sometimes thinks it's me. He calls my other brother Dad because he's with him all the time. So those little things are things that, that's something that you don't even think about until you have to deal with it.
Michael's interview was part of a program that helped kick off Israel Bond's Invest in Life campaign. You can watch the full interview on our YouTube page. By investing $107 or more in Israel Bonds, you send a powerful message. We are united and we are committed to securing a strong Israel. Please scan the QR code and invest in life.
Sagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines crafted with generations of expertise.
And now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Mostly clear skies are expected tonight around the country, with temperatures dropping to lows of around 14 degrees Celsius or 58 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, mostly cloudy skies and warm weather are expected as temperatures should climb to reach highs of 25 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, ILTV.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you for watching.